So hi, welcome everybody. My name is Michelle Hutchings. I'm the Managing Director of the Vagelos Integrated Program in Energy Research, or VIPER, at the University of Pennsylvania. We're really excited to have you all here today to learn more about the program. And the way this will run is, the first part of this will be an introduction to the program, overview of what we do. And we also have a couple of current students here with us to be able to, share their experiences in the program. Michelle White and Akash, and so I will, when we get to that part of the program, I'll let them introduce themselves to you and talk to you further, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And so this is a pretty chill, informal session. It's not being recorded, and you can feel free to unmute or ask questions in the chat. It's pretty chill. All right. And so in terms of the VIPER leadership team, as I mentioned, my name is Michelle Hutchings. I'm the managing director. I've been with the program for about a year or so, right when COVID hit, so I actually haven't made it onto campus. So Michelle and Akash will be able to tell you a little bit more about what campus life is like. But the other two members of the team are Professor Andrew Rapp and Professor John Bose, and they've been around with the program, since the program first started. The program started in about 2011, so it's relatively new, but has about 8 years under its belt. And so VIPER is a coordinated dual degree program at the University of Pennsylvania, and it's designed to prepare talented students to advance sustainable energy science and technology through interdisciplinary approaches and cutting-edge research experiences. So just to break this down a little bit, our undergraduate students are really tackling major challenges in energy science and technology and the development of these new technologies. And they're doing it in a way where they're pursuing 2 degrees in science as well as engineering. So they get this understanding of the fundamentals and the basics of science, as well as the engineering applications, which is a pretty unique combination. And then they really dive into research from their first year all the way up until senior year, and are really making an impact in terms of research. And so this is something that they're able to do, as first-year students and undergraduate students. And so it's not, a dream that's like 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. Our students are able to really make an impact right now during their time at Penn. And so where VIPER started, we launched the program in 2011 with a gift from Dr. P. Roy and Diana Vagelos. I'm listing a couple of the accomplishments that Dr. Vagelos has done over the years, but it really could take up this entire slide, so I really just picked a couple of highlights. But he's been a senior surgeon and section head for comparative biochemistry at the National Institutes of Health, the CEO and chairman of Merck, a big pharmaceutical company, and he's currently the chairman of the board of Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and has been an author of over 100 scientific papers. So he's a really, prolific and important figure in the scientific field. And when they were launching this program in 2011, he had said, I really see alternative sources of energy as extremely important for this country and really for the world. And so this really stemmed the VIPER program. One of the really cool things is that every year Dr. Vagelos is able to come and meet the VIPER first years and seniors. And so this actually is coming up in about a month. So he'll be getting to meet all of the different VIPER students. And it's really, I think, inspiring to have this opportunity to talk to such an important and great figure. But he's also really interested in what each of the VIPER students is doing and working on. So getting to talk to him about their specific interests is also a really great experience. All right, so why energy science and why do we care about it? So first of all, energy is really one of the biggest challenges of our lifetime. So how do we go about figuring out how to harness and use and store energy in a sustainable way? I'm sure many of you know that most of our energy comes from fossil fuels, so coal, oil, and natural gas. And the way that we've gotten these fuels is really, really unique. So where really over the course of millions of years and with the heat and pressure of the earth, nature has transformed dead organic material into these really highly energy-dense fuels that we are then able to extract from the earth and burn. But one of the major problems with that is we don't have an unlimited supply of it. It's a limited resource, and eventually we're going to run out of it. And not only that, we've also seen a lot of the negative environmental impacts that have come from that, the biggest one being climate change, of us pumping a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and really kind of messing with the environment that way. In addition, it also leads to dependence on other countries who have high abundances of fossil fuels. And one of the major challenges is that we've really become used to an energy abundant society where we can walk into a room, we flip a switch, energy floods into the room, lights up the room, and this has really been kind of interwoven into a lot of the different things that we do as a society. So how do we go about thinking about how do we transition into sustainable energy? I think there are a lot of questions that go into it. So there are just a lot of different fields that we need to tackle in order to answer this question. So we need to think about the materials that make sense for us to use and their properties. We need to think about how efficient technologies are and how can we make them more efficient. How do we go from something that's in a small laboratory scale to something that works on a national or a global scale? How do we store and transport energy, especially if it can be only collected at intermittent times? So if it is not abundant at all times throughout the day or throughout the year? And how do we think about our infrastructure, which was really designed around fossil fuels, and what would we need in order to build up that support for different energy technologies? And so this is, one really big part of the picture, but I also want to emphasize that innovations in the energy sector really enable us to do so much more. So if we can make things more efficient, make things use less energy, then it really also opens up this world of possibilities in what we're going to be able to do with the technology that we have. And so in order to do this, we really need people tackling these challenges who are curious, who are innovative, and who are determined. So in terms of curiosity, I think research is all about asking questions, so asking tough questions of yourself and your project and trying to figure out how the world works and what makes sense in terms of the technology that society is producing. We need people who are innovative and can look at a problem and just creatively problem solve this really unique challenge that's going to require a lot of collaboration across different fields and really globally to tackle this major challenge. And we need people who are determined. So in research in the laboratory, there are a lot of different curveballs that are thrown at people. Things won't work as you expect them to. And so researchers kind of need to have this perseverance to, if they're running into some challenges, be able to figure them out, get back up again. And so I also wanted to emphasize this because for the VIPER program, we don't need people who are applying to have previous experience in energy research or really in research in general. What we're looking for are people who would be able to have the potential to fit into this type of program and so I'm listing out a couple of the qualities that I've really seen in VIPER students that are allowing them to thrive in the program. And so in terms of VIPER's approach, so we are really looking to develop innovators in energy science. And so for that first part, for our interdisciplinary approach, our students are tackling those 2 degrees in science and engineering. So upon graduating from the program, students are walking away with a Bachelor of Arts in a science or math field, as well as a Bachelor of Science Bachelor of Science in Engineering in an engineering field. And so to be able to see the fundamental basics of science in combination with the engineering degree is really that unique aspect that you're not going to find in a lot of other places. Our students are also really immersed in those research experiences. So we have an on-ramp into research that all of our students take that's designed to get students comfortable and confident in, how do I dive into the research world, and really start off that journey. And then really throughout their time as first years, sophomores, juniors and seniors, really being able to get a lot of research experience. A lot of our students do come out with publications, although that's not a requirement of the program. And so really just getting a lot of experience in the lab that's very fully supported by VIPER. And then we also have a collaborative community. And so while all of our students are rooted in their interest in energy science and technology, they're coming at it from so many different perspectives and backgrounds. And so we have students who are in physics and biology and chemistry, as well as students who are in material science and engineering, chemical and biomolecular engineering, electrical engineering. And so they're bringing their different perspectives and talking about different projects to really kind of open up the world of thinking about these kinds of challenges. And so in terms of those 2 degrees, I'm kind of listing out all of the majors on the Bachelor of Arts side. So we have majors like chemistry, mathematics, biology, physics, and astronomy, as well as the Bachelor of Science and Engineering side. So mechanical engineering and applied mechanics, electrical engineering, computer engineering. And then I think one of the really nice things about VIPER is then you can then mix and match depending on what your interests are. And so if we have a student who's really interested in chemistry as well as electrical engineering, that might be a path that they're able to take, or biology and bioengineering. And so this curriculum is really tailored towards what the student is interested in. Students also take energy courses throughout their time at Penn, so these can be really done at any point during their time at Penn. And so I'm just listing a couple of examples here. So some of the courses that students might take are humans in the environment, global climate change, energy systems and policy. And so this is really just to encourage a breadth of looking at different energy from different lenses and perspectives, and kind of sampling a lot of the different courses at Penn that focus on energy. I thought Bhaskar, who is a current VIPER senior, put it in a nice way where he said that designing a sustainable world is the challenge of our generation. And so VIPER is really about starting a career, thinking about this cutting edge tech to make that happen. And to talk a little bit more about the dedicated on-ramp to research. So this is something that's unique to VIPER students. So in the first year, our students take a course called VIPER 120 that happens in the spring. This is really designed to expose students to a wide variety of different energy topics. So we'll invite Penn faculty to come talk about their research, talk about just different energy topics, and really to have students be familiar with some of the resources in energy research that are at Penn. And I'll go into a couple more detail about that a little bit later. But they're also receiving guidance on how to identify and join a research group in preparation for their first summer of research. And so then after VIPER 120, everybody does summer research at Penn. Hopefully, we'll be back to a regular type of non-COVID summer eventually. But everyone is doing research on campus and really kind of building that supportive network of researchers, within their cohort and with all of the other VIPER students who are on campus as well. In the fall, sophomores, they then take VIPER 121, and this is really geared towards science communication. So now that you've done your research, how do you communicate that broadly to a variety of different audiences in a way that's going to be effective and people understand it, and in just different modes, so poster sessions or oral presentations or written communications. And so really throughout this time, students are building their scientific research and communication skills throughout this course. And so Alice, who is a current VIPER sophomore, talked about VIPER exposing her to research in various different fields to really try to help her find out what she was most interested in. And then in terms of exploring the world of research, so our VIPER students conduct research for 3 summers or 2 summers and 2 semesters. In terms of the summer research support that happens at Penn, VIPER students are very well taken care of. So they have a generous housing stipend that covers all of their housing and living expenses on campus. There's also research funds that their advisors can request to kind of supplement other funding for research in the laboratory. And then there's also conference travel funds, and these are offered year-round, where students can go, travel, talk to other researchers about what they've been doing, and spread that word very widely. We also have an annual research symposium where our VIPER students can share their research with each other, as well as the Penn community in general. So Andy, who is a current VIPER junior, summarized it nicely, where he says that VIPER really equips us with the tools to become experienced researchers and really think critically about energy production, storage, and consumption. I want to just talk a little bit about those research opportunities in and out of Penn. So over the course of the number of years that VIPER has existed on Penn's campus, our VIPER students have worked with about 54 Penn faculty members across 4 schools. So they're really working with a wide range of different researchers across Penn. But they also will go to other places as well. So they can do research in different domestic institutions, so national laboratories, research centers, other universities, as well as they'll do international research experiences, so the REACT Project's giant internship in France, as well as the International Center for Quantum and Molecular Structures at Shanghai University, are experiences that our VIPER students have done in the past as well. And so there's really a vast number of different research opportunities that students can do that are at Penn and beyond. And what we've really seen is that this really strong engagement with research means that our students have a lot of opportunities to publish. So as I mentioned, publication is not a requirement of the program by any means, but we do see our students coming out with a number of papers over the years. And so I'm just kind of giving you a sense of some of the different students and the publications that they've had in the past, and showing their pictures, because I think when you look at just a list of names on a publication, it can be difficult to tell, see the people behind those publications. And for those of you who might not be familiar with publications, this is really like a kind of currency of the research world. So a lot of the work that's being done in the laboratory gets published in various types of journals, so that they can be disseminated to other researchers and read and built upon. And so just to give a list of the different peer-reviewed publications that our VIPER students have published over the past years. As I mentioned, our first graduating class was not too long ago. It was in 2016. And so over the past 5 years or so, our students have really come out with a number of different papers across a wide variety of journals and different research groups as well. And then in terms of the collaborative network, so our student cohorts are fairly small, so they're limited to 25 students per class. This is intentional. We cap it at that number. We do want students to get to know other people that are in their cohort, as well as older students and alumni of the program, and really kind of build up that network. This past semester, we launched 2 exciting initiatives, a VIPER Student Club, as well as a VIPER Alumni Board. I'm showing a picture here of our last Zoom meeting on Friday, where the Alumni Board held their first event that really brought students from actually every year, every graduating class of the VIPER program together, and it was really fun. What ended up being a 3-hour event of people getting to know each other in really small groups, as well as just hearing about some of the exciting things that are coming up in terms of what the VIPER Alumni Board is planning. And so there's really a lot of opportunity for leadership and being able to connect with other VIPER students too. We have a VIPER Slack channel, so if you're not familiar with Slack, it's like a messaging app, so you can get to talk to each other very quickly. We have it for everyone that's in the VIPER program, as well as a lot of alumni, to be able to kind of communicate in this very virtual world that we're all living in. And then we've continued to host events virtually. In non-COVID times, we also have weekly summer lunches, celebratory dinners, game nights, et cetera. And so we've transitioned a lot of this to the virtual setting because we're not going to let COVID stop us from getting together. But then Adam, I think, put it nicely. He's a current VIPER senior. And so he says that everyone in VIPER really shares this passion for science and energy, but this passion, manifests in a variety of different interests, studies, research areas, which leads to really interesting conversations. And in terms of where our VIPER alumni go after the program, we see that they go into just a variety of different careers after Penn. And so we see a lot of students go into PhD programs at a number of different prestigious universities. We see them at Harvard, Caltech, Stanford, Northwestern, Berkeley, et cetera. We have students who are in master's degree programs and one student who's at medical school. Some students leverage their technical background to go into industry as engineers or scientists or even start their own companies. And then we've also seen students leverage their knowledge in energy to go into energy consulting and really make a difference in that aspect. And really, Penn is an emerging leader in energy. So there are a number of different institutions at Penn that tackle, energy from a different perspective. So, and most of these are relatively new, like 2009 and earlier. So we have the Penn Center for Energy and Innovation, or Pennergy, the Kleinman Center for Energy Policy, the Vagelos Institute for Energy Science and Technology, as well as us. But then also very exciting is the new development where we will soon have our Vagelos Laboratory for Energy Science and Technology, which will be the new home to the VIPER program. And this is scheduled to open fall 2024. So we will have our dedicated VIPER room, which is currently in the chemistry building, kind of moved to this new Vagelos laboratory, as well as it's a $173 million facility that'll house just different laboratories between the School of Arts and Sciences and the School of Engineering and Applied Science, as well as all of the VIPER activities and the Vagelos Institute for Energy Science and Technology activities as well. And so this is scheduled to open fall 2024. The class of 2025, your class, will be the first ones to be in this building if all goes according to the construction schedule. So that's also super exciting as well. All right, so I will now kind of stop talking there. I'm going to transition to giving the floor to our current students that we have here, Michelle and Akash. And so I will go ahead and stop sharing and kind of give the floor to them as well. So Michelle, do you want to kind of start off just introducing yourself and kind of giving a little bit of information about your experiences in VIPER?
Sure, of course. So hi everybody, I'm Michelle. I'm currently a junior, so that means that my graduation year would be 2022. You might have seen on the slide that my majors are biology and bioengineering, and I'm also going for a minor in chemistry. So first of all, that's like the amazing thing about VIPER is you get to study like whatever you want as long as you're interested in science, and it's great, and like it is truly interdisciplinary. And then also I've been able to do research at Penn in a huge range of things from like epigenetics, and then I did a little bit on medical devices and the electricity of the heart. And now I'm currently doing a conservation evolutionary history project in ants. So yeah, that's basically an overview of what I do.
Awesome. And Akash?
Yeah, so I'm Akash. I'm also junior, class of 2022. I think, I'm not completely sure, but I think me and Michelle started on the same majors. We were both CBE and environmental science, right? Yeah, so we were both CBE environmental science. I am currently at CBE in chemistry. So that kind of just tells you like people, especially even VIPER students who are like going into a concentrated program in energy research don't really know exactly what they want to do. But because of like the flexible interdisciplinary nature, you have so much flexibility even when you join VIPER as like a dual degree, which I really loved. I am also doing a research project outside of my major in MEME, which is mechanical engineering, on lithium-ion microbatteries. I heard a talk by the professor, thought it was super cool, asked if I could join this group with basically no background in electrochemistry, and I just love the group, the professor, and like all of the PhD and grad students in the lab. Got to do some really cool research, and I'm currently working on a microbattery modeling project, which kind of combines some CBE things that I've learned, but also a lot of stuff that I've learned over the years in his lab. But yeah, that's just a brief introduction into like the education aspects of things.
Awesome. Thank you both. And I also see Andrew here. Andrew Rapp is one of our faculty co-directors. So Andrew, I also just wanted to give you the opportunity to say hi as well.
Great. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. I enjoyed hearing Michelle's presentation. And as you can see, there are lots of ways that you can find yourself within the VIPER program. It's a flexible program giving you lots of different opportunities to explore education and research here at the University of Pennsylvania, and helping you to build your career in alternative energy research. I look forward to hearing your questions.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to kind of open it up for the remainder of our time here. So if does anyone have any questions that we can dive into? Either feel free to unmute or type them into the chat, either one.
I was wondering about how flexible it is with taking classes that are like completely outside of the VIPER stuff. Like if I want to take like a philosophy class, does that fit in at all?
Yeah, I could answer that one. As part of doing a degree in the college, there are distribution requirements. So not only are you allowed, you're actually required to take some classes that give you a broad perspective and different ways of thinking. And every year we have some students who manage to do a minor in a humanity, whether it's French or music or something like that.
Yeah, and Philosophy 001 is actually a course that a lot of VIPER students end up taking, and one, to just kind of get familiarity with that subject, but there's also different strategies to tackling the dual degree as well. And so there are certain courses that'll count for multiple of the college requirements that Andrew was talking about. And so there are ways that you can kind of pare down the number of requirements within the dual degree by taking something that could count for 2 or 3 requirements across your degrees. And so that's actually a pretty common one that students take.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to add on to that. I think Michelle and I did kind of similar things in kind of making our 2 majors kind of similar. So a lot of my CBE and chemistry requirements overlap, which allowed me to take a variety of other classes, allowed me to, start to take a minor. I had a minor in sustainability and environmental management, so I've taken classes in legal studies, anthropology, sociology, operations and retail management, like all of these kinds of things that I thought were interesting. And so I was able to take advantage of all the things that Penn has to offer while being a dual degree and doing energy research. So really like just whatever you can set your mind to and, take control of, you can do.
I'll add something else too, as long as everybody is. Yeah, so all of that is very true, and there's a lot of flexibility there. But then also one thing that I've really appreciated is like I personally just like prefer science and engineering courses, and I've been able to take engineering courses outside of BE. So I'm actually taking a class with Akash right now in CBE. So yeah, there's like not even just between college and engineering or science and humanities, but also between engineering majors. Yeah, it's super cool.
All right, and I see a question from Alana. Could we clarify how we can apply to be admitted into the program? Do we apply to Penn as a college and then apply to VIPER as well? So I can take this one. When students are applying to VIPER, you'll apply through your initial application to Penn. And so they'll have a section that says, basically, what would you want to do if you were admitted to this program? You can give first choice, second choice. If you're interested in VIPER, I would recommend saying, I'm listing VIPER as my first choice. And then if you wanted to be considered for anything else, like a single degree in the college or engineering or something else at Penn, then you have that ability to list it there as well. So I think the most common way that students get into VIPER is through that initial application as high school seniors into into Penn, but we also do accept first-year transfer applications as well. And so say if you weren't in VIPER, but we're a Penn student when we're still interested in the program, at the end of your first year fall, then you'd be able to apply, at the moment giving a 4-year plan for what you'd be interested in doing in VIPER, as well as kind of a similar type of essay as what's in the Penn application as a high school senior, and say, why are you interested in the program? And so then we evaluate all those applications at the end of the fall, as well as the grades from that first semester at Penn, and we make those decisions so that students can enter into VIPER 120 just as everybody in their class, so you don't really lose any of the curriculum compared to other people who entered in your class. Does anyone have any other questions?
I'm kind of interested in nuclear physics and nuclear engineering. Is there any room for that with VIPER?
It's quite possible that you could find an REU program in some of your summer research during your after your sophomore year or after your junior year. That's not a big part of the portfolio here at the University of Pennsylvania. Many people feel that nuclear energy will be an important source for us again in the near future as a bridge technology to things that are even more sustainable. So it's an interesting topic, and some of your coursework will cover it. But for the research projects, I think we're focused in other areas much more than we are in nuclear. I guess I would say one exception to that is the lanthanide elements and the actinide elements are important for many things. So uranium has very interesting chemistry of separations, and many of the lanthanides are important for magnets that enable wind turbines and things like that. And so we have chemists here that are working on how to separate the different lanthanide elements from each other, so all of them can be used effectively and perhaps harvested more cleanly. You may know that most lanthanides come from China and they're strip mined in a very dirty way. So we'd like to have more sustainable ways of accessing those elements, but that would be more toward renewable things, like I'm saying, like generating electricity using wind turbines, and then the magnets give you the inductive effect.
All right, what are we looking for in a successful applicant for this program? I'll take that one. So I think, as we're evaluating applications, I think one of the things that we're looking for is really about fit into the program. And so I would, caution against saying what are the different characteristics that we're really eyeing, and how can I make myself, kind of fit that category. But we're really hoping to hear student voice, student experiences come through the application. So to be able to talk about why you're interested in the program, kind of what led you to those interests and that interest in energy, even if you may not have had experience directly with research or directly with energy research in the past. And so we're, wanting to find people who are able to do well in this, kind of rigorous academic program, and are, have that sustained interest in energy research, and the potential to do well in the program.
Yeah, I agree with that. I could add that we're looking for people who agree that solving alternative energy problems demands a knowledge of fundamental science and applied engineering approaches to make those breakthroughs realistic. And so we think that having the two ways of thinking as part of your university education will be extremely beneficial for you. And so we're really looking for people who have that as their governing philosophy. And we're looking for people who are motivated and excited about the future. It's a very optimistic program. And I think, as you could hear from Michelle and Akash, we have a lot of very friendly people in this program, and that's a great source of support for each other. We really like to get together and encourage each other.
Yes, I can definitely speak to the fact that, like, especially in my year, and then of course in like other years we started to intermingle more, probably because of the pandemic, you know, it's just been easier for like vertical communication, but everybody is lovely, everybody's chill, everybody has, the beautiful thing about VIPER is that everybody has like a like-minded perspective on the importance of research and academics at Penn. So that's great.
Yeah, and I want to add, like, on the complete flip side of that, everyone's completely different in terms of like what specifically they like about, you know, sustainable future. And so I find that, like, talking to people from VIPER specifically, like, we communicate on the same like wavelength, but they have so much like different personality and so much different background as to like why they're interested in sustainable energy. And so I think that you really meet a lot of diverse people, but they become your closest friends.
Well, you want to talk about the little mystery thing we've been doing the last couple of weeks? People are posting factoids about themselves, and the whole VIPER program has to try to guess who they're talking about. Like someone said they were involved in a hang gliding incident in New Zealand, and it was a great mystery for us to figure out who that was among our ranks. So we have fun online, and we play various kinds of games, game nights.
Yeah, I remember when I saw it, one of the questions was like, guess who in VIPER is a twin? And like the people who ended up being twins, I had no idea that they were twins. Okay, because I have two younger sisters that are twins, and like I guess I just didn't expect that person based on how I know what, you know, you learn something new every day. And then yeah, I've been to like a lot of game nights. They're super fun too. So we definitely get along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I learned all about Among Us. And everyone was so good at it. And now I actually really like it.
Well, I know how to do my chores. I'm not sure I really like killing people.
That's fair. Akash and Michelle, I was also kind of hoping that you could talk a little bit about that transition for you from high school to being a first year student. You know, how did you figure out what you were interested in terms of energy and transition to Penn?
Okay, this is a wonderful question because I think that, like Akash, for instance, is really, I think he really knew what he liked from the beginning because he stayed in CBE, which is chemical engineering, by the way. But then, so for my personal experience, I went in as chemical engineering and environmental studies because I thought that would be its overlap for addressing the energy issue, and also based on my experience in high school, I did research on fuels chemistry. And I was very fortunate to have that experience and all of that, but my interests have changed a lot since then. The transition itself was difficult in terms of adjusting to like what college expects from you versus what high school expects from you. But it was also really fun because Penn is just like a great school with tons of cool opportunities. And I think Penn is especially good at making new students feel really welcome. And so is VIPER. So it's like, not only are you going to get your Penn family, but you also get like this smaller, more connected, more tight, like VIPER family. And so I really enjoyed that. But since then, I genuinely did not know exactly what I wanted to do. And so that's completely okay, I think, for anybody here. At some point, I even was interested in medical school. And so I took a lot of chemistry courses. And at this point, I've decided that, you know, my passions are in ecology and conservation. But I'm getting a chemistry minor now because I took all those classes and I found a love for chemistry too. So there was time to explore. The transition doesn't need to be perfect, but I think it's different for everybody. So Akash is probably going to say something now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool perspective. Michelle's definitely right in that, like, I knew I wanted to pursue some sort of like chemistry, chemical engineering type background. I know Michelle is more on the biology side, but I like didn't know what research I was interested in. So in high school, I was a part of a neuroscience research project dealing with like epilepsy and seizures. And it was completely, obviously you don't really study about that in high school, but I liked the research experience. So I came to college knowing that I wanted to engage in research some more, but I didn't know exactly what field I wanted to engage the research in because I knew I liked chemistry studying in like junior and senior year of high school. So I joined with that mindset where, I'm open to a bunch of different fields, and I just want to see like what interests me, and I'll go for it. So, Michelle and I have both been like advising freshmen who are looking for, research advisors now, and like the way that I, explain my experience is a similar way. I didn't know exactly what field I wanted to go to, but I was really open-minded, which is why I ended up joining a mechanical engineering lab that was, outside of both of my majors, just because I liked the professor and I liked the people. And so since you, obviously joined VIPER wanting to do research, as long as you enjoy the project and you find it interesting, you're going to have a lovely research experience no matter what. Yeah.
Awesome. And so you've touched on this a little bit, but a related question is, looking back on your high school career, what would you say helped you stand out compared to your peers?
Yeah, I was looking at that question as well. This is kind of funny because I think college admissions, even as a junior, I still have no idea how they work. So when I tell you how I stood out, I may be completely 100% wrong and no one cared about it. But in my experience, I think that, having some research background is definitely helpful. It shows, the college faculty that you are able to take initiative. You can, tackle challenges that are higher than, what you're expected to do, and you're determined and persistent. I think that's personally what allowed me to maybe gain an edge over my peers, but I don't know if Michelle can kind of talk about that too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure. I think, there are things that one might really appreciate about themselves and there might be something totally different that an admissions officer likes about you looking at your application. So I think for me, I hopefully demonstrated the ability to handle a lot of different aspects of life. So I think I had a rigorous course load in high school, which I'm sure all of you do as well. But then I also explored music a lot, and I also did a little sports here and there. I did some swimming and rowing, and I think for me personally, being able to handle and juggle all of those things in high school helped me in college juggle the interdisciplinary program and research on top of that. So that's maybe something to think about. And then also, I think just being completely genuine about what your interests are in your essays, because that's really the time to tell people who are looking at your application what you are interested in and what you want to pursue. And, you're young. I mean, you're probably barely adults, 17 to 18 to 19 years old. So if you don't exactly know, I think it's also probably okay to say, I don't know yet, but I am interested in energy for these reasons, So that's my best answer. But, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I think one thing just to add to that is that, totally recognize that people are coming from, a lot of different situations, different backgrounds, different opportunities. And so I think there's not one set, standard of, we need this in the application in order to consider you, but we're really looking at those applications holistically in the context of, where you're coming from, what's available to you. And so I think especially the more that you can kind of look at what resources are available for you and how you might be able to demonstrate the academic rigor and being able to tackle a dual degree is, I think, something that's worth looking at.
Yeah. Michelle, I think you said it great when you said look at it holistically. I would add that when you write your essays, people see your college essay, your second essay, and your VIPER essay all together. So if one of them says, you're so passionate about mammalian biology, and the next one says you're so passionate about cold fusion, and the next one says you're so passionate about hang gliding. It's hard to understand how this all comes out of the same person. So I think keep that in mind as you write your essays. And please don't consult a essay writing service. This is really the chance to express yourself in your own way. And we get a sense of you, the person, through these essays, even more than through anything else that we receive. So other people said, I think Michelle said, just be yourself, and the fact that you've done a variety of activities, that will be in your favor. For some people, they will have had some research experience. Some people have had some interesting advanced education or some unusual life experiences. And all of that can lead your path to our door. And so we respect all these different journeys.
Then Alana's asking, as the energy sector is often a restricted industry, do your students find any resistance in collaborating in foreign countries, especially countries like China? So in particular, the project in Shanghai. So Andrew, do you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. In fact, we set up a very interesting exchange program between a student in the VIPER program and a student in an honors college at a university in China. And so the two of them were paired up, and one of them visited, the student from our program visited China first, and then the two students both came back to America at the same time. So they're both here for a few weeks. And that worked out really great. First, the big picture is much of what we're doing is not patentable, not ready to be inserted into industry. And so working together collaboratively with professors in another country is not frowned upon, not illegal. And there are rules that we should follow. You have to declare whatever associations you have. Honesty is always the best policy. But we have some wonderful collaborative relationships around the world between the VIPER program and other organizations and professors within the VIPER program and their associates. Another big one for us is there is a Penn-centered program in France. So it is supervised by Penn professors, but the students get to spend time researching in France. And so several of our VIPER students have gone to that one as well as a summer research project.
Awesome. And so maybe Michelle and Akash, can you speak a little bit more about your different research experiences and projects that you've been on, and what's it like in the laboratory?
Sure. So, well, firstly, I would say that I actually started doing kind of preliminary surface level research as a high schooler, and I just immediately loved it. I think that when you walk into a lab, sometimes you can just tell immediately this is a really cool environment and this is a place where I want to be, et cetera, et cetera. But since then, I've been through a lot of research experiences in an effort to find the one that fits for me best, which is another beautiful thing about VIPER. There's a lot of flexibility there. There's a lot of patience there for figuring out what you want to do. And so in the beginning, I was doing an epigenetics research project about drug addiction, which was very, very interesting. And then I also did my VIPER summer research, actually, as a freshman, was in the electricity of the heart and developing software algorithms for anti-tachycardia pacing, which is a type of therapy. But currently I'm on a research project that has trumped them all. I just truly love it, and I'm glad that my path led me here, because it's about ant ecology and evolution. We're currently researching the size difference between males, female queens, and female workers. So that's very cool. And I also appreciate being in VIPER while also being in a biolab, because at first glance it may not seem like there's a lot of overlap there. But I've learned through the years that there's actually a lot of importance in having healthy environmental ecosystems in both aquatic environments and terrestrial environments. And that's extremely important for carbon stabilization. They act as huge carbon sinks, and it's just a great way for atmospheric carbon mitigation and eventually reduction. So that's been a great thing to discover, and I think that this is going to prepare me very well for creating my own novel research project that has an overlap between biology and energy. And that might not exist currently, but I could be a part of making that exist one day. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty unique freshman research experience, or growing into it, because I started working in a lab where I had no background in what I was doing. But I started on a project that was super time sensitive. So I was working on a DARPA funded project, which is Department of Defense. And so we had a strict 1 year deadline or timeline. we had to get the project done within a year or else we'd lose our funding. And so I was on a project working with a grad student and a PhD student. And so it was really like important for me to get the preliminary information I needed in terms of like fundamentals, but also start to learn about the research in the area. So I was working on, lithium-ion microbattery project where I was specifically working on the adhesive or the packaging for this project. So I was working on a very specific part of the project. So like I not only like got to learn a lot about batteries that I didn't learn in my classes, but I was also, I created like an expertise in that area just over the year that I was working on the project. So it's not only, a way for you to apply stuff that you've learned, but it's also a chance for you to learn something new yourself. You really get immersed in whatever you're working on through research because it's really hands-on. It's just a completely different learning experience than you'll get in the classroom. So that's what I really enjoyed about my freshman experience. Going to the summer, working 8 hours a day, it was just an experience like no other. And I continued to work in the lab because I liked it so much, moved away from a group project to something independent. And that also gave me a whole different lens about the research, process. Me kind of like thinking through the thought process by myself from scratch, developing the project, what I was interested in, looking at the literature and like what was similar to how that happened, and then starting to develop my own project, kind of by myself directly with the professor. And so you just get so much access to resources, access to professors, to grad students, to PhD students that you just like really, admire. And it's completely different than a normal college experience. So I've really enjoyed my research experience at Penn. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I actually did want to add on to that. That's a good point. I think when I was younger, I thought research was just like you and then the researcher, like student and PI. But there's like hierarchy, not hierarchies in terms of like power or whatever, but there are levels because there are grad students, there are postdocs, there are sometimes maybe even high schoolers. And so you get to interact with a lot of different people of different educational levels and experience, which can be great because I do think that a huge part of research is the social aspect as well. And like everybody at Penn is like super bright, super smart, and super driven. So like that's a great thing about going to Penn specifically. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. Are there any other questions that people have? All right, if not, it sounds like we've covered a lot of ground. Okay, one more. All right, does Penn look for students who are super invested into one subject or an overall student? Go ahead.
I think definitely an overall student. I think VIPER specifically an overall student just because it's interdisciplinary and you do have to choose not one, but two majors and then even possibly a minor. So yeah, I think it's definitely good to be very invested into one subject, but I think it would be very beneficial to explore others and yeah, overall student.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add something. I really liked what Michelle said earlier when we were talking about the application process. Like, I think time management and really being able to tackle different subjects and different activities is super important to a VIPER student. Even if it doesn't come through in your application, I think as a current VIPER student, I think it's like, if I had to pick one quality that would make me the most successful, I think it's that. I think just being able to manage your time and tackling all these different things. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think that also talks about like your interest in different subjects. It's a lot different being a VIPER student than just focusing on one specific topic. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Alana, if you had had to improve on one aspect of the VIPER program, would you have any suggestions? This is probably best answered by our current students, because we're a little biased.
All right, I'm gonna push my personal agenda here, and this is not a fault of VIPER. This is just like what I personally love to see. Every year, I adore seeing like the new students and getting to know people and like where they come from. And like I love meeting the male students, but I also just love seeing young female scientists. So yeah, like Alana, you specifically, and any other girl, everybody here. But like, yeah, I just would love to see more girls. And it's not even that, not enough girls get accepted. It's also like not as many as are accepted actually stay in the program. And so you do have to stay driven, you do have to stay motivated, but it's worth it, I think, in the end, even though it may feel like maybe like a male-dominated field or something like that. It's worth the push and it's worth staying. And I'll be here for the next year, so please.
Yeah, I think personally, it's something that Dr. Hutchings is working on right now, but it's like bringing together all the different years of VIPER. I think your year, so like me and Michelle as juniors, get together, or like we get closer together because we take those two classes that Dr. Hutchings talked about together, and then we have a whole summer where there's not that many freshmen doing research, but all of the VIPER freshmen are all doing research on campus. And so you really get to know your peers in your year. And now, we're trying to combine all the different years and get people to know each other. And I think it's something that's super cool that is kind of specific to VIPER as a small program where you can actually get to know people from different years. So.
And I think one thing to add that's interesting too is that our alumni are relatively young. So they've all graduated within 5 years of at Penn. And so what I've seen is that the alumni are very excited to give back to the program. They want to talk to current students and give that mentorship aspect as well. And so I just see a lot of drive on the alumni side to be interacting with other current students, especially because they've pioneered the program. So they were like, we didn't have alumni. And so we really want to be that resource for current students. And so it's been really great to see connections across years. All right, so we are coming up to time. So I just want to put up this final slide. All right, and I didn't spend too much time on this slide, but I thought these pictures are super cool. So rather than, standard profile pictures, you guys got these pictures.
Thank you for putting that picture up.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so if you're interested in the VIPER program, I wanted just to give you a couple of other things that you can do, after this admissions info session. So one is that if you're interested in meeting us on a one-on-one basis with either myself or Professor Rapp or Professor Vose, definitely, email us. Reach out to us. We love talking to prospective students, and we can, answer your questions about the program. We can talk, more about who you are and where you're coming from. So we really encourage you to take advantage of that resource. You can visit our website at viper.upenn.edu, and this also has guidance for, our contact information and other ways to connect with the program as well. All of our curriculum information, alumni information is on there. And then recommend following us on Facebook and Instagram at VIPER@Penn. And our email address is listed here. So please do feel free to reach out if you have any questions or anything that comes up, after this session. We're very responsive, very, very open to chatting with you. All right, and with that, I will stop sharing. We're at 5 o'clock, so just on time. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you so much, Michelle and Akash, for joining and sharing your stories and experiences. I thought this was a really great session.
Okay, I'm going to head out. Thanks, Michelle and Dr. Rapp. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, it's great seeing you.
Bye.
Thanks for attending, everyone.